at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Friday, February 28th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, here to be your MBFF, especially now in these difficult times of, was it really a struggle of a week? So much to cover for all of us. And then you had the coronavirus fears, which we talked about last night. And I'm so appreciative some people called in who are healthcare professionals telling me, don't be as freaking out, and others going, freak out. But I mean, at least it was good to have both voices going on. By the way, if you're over the weekend, you're watching TV, tomorrow morning I'll be on Ali Velshi's show on MSNBC at 8 a.m. at the top of the show, and then on Joy Reid's show Sunday. So I hope you'll check out both shows. They're great hosts. Love them both. And by the way, Donald Trump, we have some breaking news we'll give it to you in a second about the virus. But Donald Trump had a little press conference, and here's his new strategy. This is real. This is not a joke. On how we're going to end this all. How simple it all is. Here's clip number one.
Going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows. The fact is, the greatest experts, I've spoken to them all, nobody really knows. But
it could just go away. It could just be a miracle. That was really about the virus. I'm not kidding. I'm not making that up. That's not out of context. That's a real clip. And I just want to share with people what a real president sounds like, because you could have forgotten what it's like to have an actual leader in the White House during a crisis like a global virus epidemic. And here is President Obama, shortly after, almost the same time frame where Donald Trump is now. And you heard Donald Trump's thing, and we played some of his clip Wednesday. Here's President Obama, clip number 6.
Now here's the hard truth. In West Africa, Ebola is now an epidemic of the likes that we have not seen before. It's spiraling out of control. It is getting worse. It's spreading faster and exponentially. Today, thousands of people in West Africa are infected. That number could rapidly grow to tens of thousands. And if the outbreak is not stopped now, we could be looking at hundreds of thousands of people infected, with profound political and economic and security implications for all of us. So this is an epidemic that is not just a threat to regional security, it's a potential threat to global security. If these countries break down, if their economies break down, if people panic, that has profound effects on all of us, even if we are not directly contracting the disease.
That's what a leader sounds like. They give you the truth. They give you the facts. They don't go, oh, it's a miracle. I talked to experts. I don't know what's going on. And then using a press conference on Wednesday to go after Nancy Pelosi, to say the stock market's going down in large part because of the Democrats. That's literally what he said. You know, last night on my show, I said sincerely, I was rooting for Donald Trump to do the right thing in containing this virus, because this is real live. People could die if we have a massive outbreak. And for that reason, I'm rooting for Donald Trump to do the right thing. I obviously have concerns. He has no credibility in what he says because he's a serial liar. Nothing about me says he's competent, but I hope maybe he could be focused on this and not play games with this and not make this partisan and not try to score political points. But that hope ended as soon as I woke up this morning and saw news coverage about Donald Trump's tweets where he was attacking Democrats and blaming them, saying that the outbreak, a quote, is now being blamed by the do-nothing Democrats to be the fault of Trump. And, you know, members of Congress are not blaming him. Members of Congress who are Democrats, well, I've seen, have said, let's work together. Some of the 2020 candidates are calling out Trump's failure of leadership. That's fair, especially if I read you some of the 2014 Donald Trump attacks on President Obama during the Ebola outbreak, where he said things like, about President Obama. I'm starting to think there's something seriously wrong with President Obama's mental health. Why won't he stop the flight? Psycho. Yeah, that's Donald Trump in 2014. And now Donald Trump doesn't want even constructive criticism because people are fearing for their families and for themselves in certain cases. People called in last night and said they'd compromised lung respiratory system and they were worried about that. But you have Donald Trump attacking the Democrats and, in fact, his minions in a concerted effort, and we'll play a few clips for you, to show this is a concerted messaging. It is now not even wanting to talk about the coronavirus. It's not even wanting to talk about the stock market. It's blaming Democrats and the media for what's going on so that we spend time talking about that. And let me ask you a question. In 2014, during the Ebola epidemic, do any of you remember President Obama blaming the Republicans for the outbreak or the coverage of the outbreak? No. He did his job. He kept us safe. In the entire about a year of that epidemic, only 11 cases came to the United States of America. Only 11 people on our soil contracted Ebola. They got it from overseas, but they were treated here. They came back to America. How many in just a few weeks do we have from Donald Trump's handling of this virus? 63 now. And that's why there's new news. I want to bring people up to speed what's happened here because the Trump administration doesn't want to talk about the facts. They don't want you to hear what's going on around the world. They want you to engage in this left-right garbage about it's the media, it's the Democrats. This is real life. This is real life. Short time before the show, 20 minutes ago, Washington Post confirms the second case of coronavirus in America. It's in California that was contracted by someone who had not traveled anywhere. They have no idea where it came from, meaning someone else had it and gave it to them. This person does not fit the travel profile, just like the other person who has it. This person's about 90 miles, I said, away from the first person who got sick, who had not traveled and in their knowledge had not been around anyone who traveled. So we have a second case. I imagine we will have many more cases. I am stunned that in New York City, where I live, where people take the subway as tourists from all over the world, and nobody knew people from who were in northern Italy were contagious. They weren't stopping any flights there or from Germany or now countless countries around the world. And it's so easy to get. Now, perhaps the good news is 80% of people, just their body fights it and they're fine. And there's no residual. So there could be New Yorkers who had it and have already healed and didn't think about the coronavirus, just thought they had the flu and gone on with their lives. But I doubt New York is going to be immune to this. It's just a question of what happens. So here's the update. Here are the real facts. More than 83,000 people now in 56 countries were up to have been affected. About a little over 2,800 have died. Reports now there's 63 people in the United States of America infected with the virus. They're adding this new person today, which 20 minutes ago that happened. It's breaking news. In the U.S., there's thankfully been no deaths yet, and let's hope that happens. Now we've seen this disease spread around the globe. I mean, you have it in Asia, Europe, the Middle East, Latin America. There's been 2 cases in Mexico confirmed today, and I'm not even joking that Donald Trump at his rally in South Carolina tonight, I'm predicting, will invoke Mexico having the outbreak, and that's why we need the wall to be built, because every piece of data in this world that comes out, whatever it is, Donald Trump, it goes through his little brain and comes out. How can it help one person, Donald J. Trump? So expect Donald Trump to use this as a reason to build a wall. Europe, Wales, and Northern Ireland have reported their first cases. Switzerland is now banning all gatherings of over 1,000 people. So that's sort of the future. You've got to see that's how it's going to work out. And there might be an over-response by some of our governors, who that's what we have to look to now. We have to look to governors because Trump's a failure. You look to the governors, and at the end of the day, maybe they over-respond and close down too many things and schools and big events. But it's better to err on the side of safety here because, the mortality rate of this is 20 times higher than the flu. We're talking about 2 to 3%. You don't have to be great at math to understand that if, say, 1 million Americans get this, based on statistics, thousands and thousands of Americans will sadly die. And in a country of over 330 million, a million getting it is a teeny percentage. So if the elected officials and government leaders and healthcare professionals want to over-respond and what they do, I think that's for the best. And no one wants to give up their freedoms, but it would be for a short period of time. And then it passes and we move on with our lives. And we go from there, as opposed to horrific thing that's going on. The UK, this is kind of new today. 20 cases, and now in the UK's had their first person die there from the virus. And the biggest objective change of the World Health Organization earlier today, raised their assessment of the global corona risk from high to very high, which is the most serious assessment in its 4-stage alert system. That's where we are. And how is the Trump administration handling this? Well, Wednesday, Donald Trump had an event where he named Mike Pence as the head of it. And what did Mike Pence do? The very next day, he goes to a CPAC rally where he makes fun of Democrats and mocks Democrats. You should not leave the White House. You should be working on this nonstop for us. And worse, they are now, on some level, muzzling healthcare professionals. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is from the National Institute of Health, who's been around for various administrations, said he's been told by Mike Pence that all messaging must go through Pence's office. And he said today to members of Congress that he said, I'm not being muzzled. That's what he said. But he said at the same time, I was scheduled to be on 5 Sunday morning news shows, and Mike Pence's office told him to cancel all 5. So he is being muzzled. He's saying he's not because maybe out of ego and doesn't want to feel like he's being muzzled. But when you take him off 5 national TV appearances and instead Trump's going to send out their political appointees who are spinning this garbage for his favor as opposed to making us safe, this is an absolute unmitigated failure. You know, Tom Steyer was on 2 days ago saying that he believes this could be Donald Trump's Katrina. Fox News got really upset. They wrote about it yesterday, and this morning they covered it on Fox and Friends, and Trump tweeted at our friend Tom Steyer, attacking Tom Steyer. So how is this all playing out? You saw Donald Trump's tweet that I read earlier, blaming the Democrats. That's not a one-off. What we see often in the world of Trump, it's that it's Donald Trump's messaging intertwined in this kind of loop with Fox News and the other people in Trump world. So the message to all of Trump world is not talk about the coronavirus, not talk about how they're going to keep you and your family safe, but to blame Democrats and say the Democrats and the media are ginning up this fear and that it is our fault that people are concerned. It is Democrats' fault that the stock market's going down when it's worldwide investors who are investing. They're not even watching American news. They're just seeing what's going on to supply chains and businesses. So here's a clip of cut together. It's Sean Hannity first, then Rush Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham, all in the last night and yesterday. And listen to this is the messaging that's completely consistent with Donald Trump. Don't talk about coronavirus. You've got nothing to worry about. It's just the Democrats trying to scare you. So, Matt, let's hear clip number 2. It is.
I can report the sky is absolutely falling. We are all doomed. The end is near. The apocalypse is imminent, and you're going to all die, all of you, in the next 48 hours. And it's all President Trump's fault. Or at least that's what the media mob and the Democratic Extreme Radical Socialist Party would like you to think. They are now sadly politicizing and actually weaponizing an infectious disease in what is basically just the latest effort to bludgeon President Trump.
They don't care about the public health aspect of this, most of them. They care about how this can be used to damage Donald Trump and build up whoever the Democrats nominate.
Democrats and their media cronies have decided to weaponize fear and also weaponize suffering to improve their chances against Trump.
This is a global epidemic. It's coming to America. It is here. We have the second case just a short time ago confirmed. Someone got it. They didn't travel. They don't know who they were exposed to, meaning others are out there sharing this. And again, to remind everyone, overwhelmingly, people who get it are going to be fine. You're going to get sick, but you're going to recover. But some will pass away. Some will be killed and die. And it's not just older people. Some of the people in China have been doctors or health director at the hospital there. So it's not just that simple. There's something about this virus that even our experts say they don't fully get yet. And if you listen today to the news, and I listen a lot to the coverage of doctors talking about this, with a lot of answering a lot of questions with, we don't know yet, but based on the virus, other flus, this is what we would say. Or based on other coronaviruses, because it's part of a sort of an amalgam of viruses, this is what we would do. And they said, don't get masks. That's the big thing. It's not going to help you. The virus is teeny. It's not going to help you with the mask. But washing your hands with warm water and soap is really, really good idea. That's what they said over and over. And what I learned today, and I didn't know this, it's not the warm water and the soap that kills the germs. It's you wringing your hands together with the soap and the warm water that kills the germs. And they said 20 seconds. They also said hand sanitizer that's 60% alcohol or more, very, very effective. Now, again, they're saying there's always this caveat. It's very effective against viruses that we've dealt with in the past. We're not 100% sure. What I did hear that was alarming is that this virus apparently has been able to, through testing in China so far, stay alive for a week on hard surfaces, which I just wanted to share that. But even just saying those words out loud, you know me, I'm neurotic. That's a little concerning. In any event, let's talk about some other real stuff here. So if you think, well, hey, that's just the media minions of Donald Trump defending him by blaming the Democrats. If it was just that, we could write it off, but it's never that. With Donald Trump, there is this loop. It's a feedback loop between them all. In fact, Mick Mulvaney went to CPAC today. Mick Mulvaney is the acting chief of staff, and he mimicked those words. In fact, added a new thing. Listen closely. Mick Mulvaney, the new spin is, we actually had a great plan. We put it in place to prevent everyone from the coronavirus weeks and weeks ago before anyone was talking about it. But you know why you didn't hear about it? And guess what he says? If you didn't hear this, guess what he said? You're not going to believe this. Because the Democrats were doing their impeachment hoax, the media didn't cover it. This is how outlandish they're getting. And here's Mick Mulvaney today, a few hours ago at CPAC, where Michelangelo Signorelli was saying these exact words, and listen very closely. This is off the charts garbage. This is misinformation you would see in the Soviet Union or Saddam Hussein, but we're getting it in the United States by the acting chief of staff. Clip number 3.
We took extraordinary steps 4 or 5 weeks ago. Why didn't you hear about it? What was still going on 4 or 5 weeks ago? Impeachment. And that's all the press wanted to talk about. So that while real news was happening, and we were dealing with it in a way that I think you folks would be extraordinarily proud of, and that was serving the nation extraordinarily well, the press was covering their hoax of the day because they thought it would bring down the president. The reason you're saying so much attention to it today is that they think this is going to be what brings down the president. That's what this is all about.
You see, the media is the enemy because the media dares to tell the truth. And if you've read it, and I've read the quote before by Goebbels, who was Hitler's propaganda minister, the big lie is repeated over and over. And the enemy of the big lie is the truth. And in this case, Donald Trump has replaced truth with media. So you heard Mick Mulvaney say, weeks ago, we had a whole plan on this. Really? Well, here's the problem, because we can fact check. Here is Donald Trump, February 10th, weeks ago. And at this point, the coronavirus is ravaging China, parts of China. And Donald Trump is asked, what are we doing about it? Now, common sense says if there was really plans weeks ago, Donald Trump, like Barack Obama, would have said, here's what we're doing. There's nothing to worry about. We're doing this, this, and that. That's what you would do if you actually had plans weeks ago. But here's Donald Trump when he was asked about it weeks ago. What did he say? Clip number 4.
The virus that we're talking about having to do, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat, as the heat comes in. Typically that will go away in April. We're in great shape, though.
Folks, if there was, I'm not even kidding, forget politics. Forget politics. I don't care if you love Donald Trump. Think about this for a second. If this administration had plans weeks ago, don't you think Donald Trump would have used that moment to brag about the plans and say, this is what we've been doing. This is how we're planning. We are stockpiling medicine. We are getting funding together. We're getting a great team of professionals together. Whatever it might be, if they were doing it, he would have shared it. They were doing nothing. Because Donald Trump told you his plan, wait for April. That was the Trump plan, wait for April. And then if you thought this couldn't get worse, Donald Trump Jr., the man that Republicans cheer at rallies of Donald Trump, they call him 46, as in they want him to be the 46th president after Donald Trump. He is beloved by the Republican base. He is the prince, the Donald Trump, the king. Here's what Donald Trump Jr. said today, and you might want to throw something at your radio when you hear this vile garbage. Here's clip number 5.
a pandemic and seemingly hope that it comes here and kills millions of people so that they could end Donald Trump's streak of winning is a new level of sickness. I don't know if this is coronavirus or Trump derangement syndrome, but these people are infected badly.
So Donald Trump Jr. is saying that we are hoping that this disease comes here and kills millions of people because that will help us defeat Donald Trump. It's very hard to know where to start in responding to that. That is as despicable as anything else Donald Trump has said. But that's who they are. And when you hear Donald Trump Jr., when you hear Donald Trump, when you hear Mick Mulvaney, and you hear his media minions, I have one question for you to think about. And think about this question really deeply. Do you want 4 more years of this? Do you want 4 more years of being lied to and being told that you want Americans to die and inciting hate against you and not caring about our families so he can score political points? Now, obviously, if you're most Americans, you do not want 4 more years of this. But for those who aren't sure, think about this. Do you want 4 more years of this incompetence, this celebration of cruelty, bigotry? This is dangerous garbage. And so tonight, Trump will have his little rally in South Carolina. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure. But, for those who think criticizing Donald Trump is unfair, you had Donald Trump's tweets from 2014. A few of them I read before. Things like him accusing the CDC of lying, saying Ebola is much easier to transmit than the CDC and the government representatives are admitting, spreading all over Africa and fast, stop flights. And then he talked about the doctor who came here who was sick. His name was Greg Spencer in 2014. He'd been treating Ebola patients in Africa, came back to America, was diagnosed with the disease. He was actually treated at NYU, not far from where I live, full recovery. But Trump tweets 2014, if this doctor who so recklessly flew into New York from West Africa has Ebola, then Obama should apologize to the American people and resign. For the Trump supporters out there who mock this, who think this is a joke, and I don't think even if they lost a loved one would they turn on Donald Trump, because the lore of white supremacy is that much. You have to understand that. But I just hope that they're right. I hope nothing happens. And I hope no one dies. But if, God forbid, there is a horrific outbreak, I hope that there will be even some on the Trump side who will join us in this protest in the street we're going to have, because we're going to have it after. If there's a massive epidemic and thousands of Americans die, and when that epidemic is over, we're going to go to the streets and demand Donald Trump resign. And I know in my heart, because sometimes I know people are not going to the street about certain things, but this is one that we would. But let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope it's contained not by Trump, his incompetence, but by our governors and local officials. And I mean Republican governors and Democratic governors. I have far more confidence in them than Donald Trump. Keep people healthy. Because how can you trust an administration that denies science to keep you healthy when the issue is science? It's not like they just deny climate change. They deny science. So you're having science deniers, and Mike Pence being the poster child, trying to keep you and your family safe. Who can rely on them? And who wants 4 more years of this? So let's take a break. Come back. You're my guest at the top of the hour, 866-997-4748. Be right back after this with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show and your calls.
You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where we crush Trump's lies every